Hi, thanks for joining me. My name is Sarah Smith. I am a teacher. I currently teach second grade. I have taught third grade in the past, and I was just trying to provide an opportunity for my students to listen to the classroom read aloud that we had started before spring break. I ordered a copy, got it in yesterday because I had left my original copy in my classroom and we haven't been able to get in. So I'm going to read 2 chapters every day and post them on this channel. Hopefully you'll be able to access it pretty easy. I'm not sure about some of the minute details, and I'll have to get to that because this is unlike the stuff I've posted before on my other channel. So my YouTube channel is called The Obnoxious Teacher, and we are going to be reading Night Books. It's by J.A. White, and we're just going to read the synopsis on the back. It says, Alex has loved scary stories his whole life. Now he's trapped in one. After Alex sneaks out in the middle of the night, he becomes imprisoned by the witch, Natcha. In her magical apartment, another child in the apartment, Yashmin, assures Alex that she's already tried every means of escape. Only Natcha holds the bone keys that lead back to their world, and she'll never part from them. But Natcha likes stories, and Alex's only chance for survival is to keep Natcha satisfied by reading her one of his own hair-raising tales each night. Except Alex is running out of stories and soon out of time. So chapter 1 is called The Wrong Floor because it's the chapter book. There is not pictures, okay? After his family had finally fallen asleep, Alex slung the backpack over his shoulder and snuck out of the apartment, easing the front door gently home so as it didn't slam shut. The 8th floor hallway looked drearier than ever without any sunlight coming through the small windows. Alex lingered on the doormat, fighting the urge to return to his warm, comfortable bed. If you do that, he thought, you'll be the same old Alex Mosier tomorrow. Weirdo. Freak, loser, is that what you want? No, he whispered. Before he could change his mind, Alex started towards the elevator at the end of the hall. During the day, snippets of the neighbors' lives leaked through the thin doors, muffled conversations, the loud blare of televisions, Miss Garcia's son practicing his violin. At this time of night, however, the hallway was nearly silent. The only sounds were a grimy light bulb that buzzed like an angry hornet and a soft rustling of Alex's backpack, as though its contents were struggling to escape their fate. Sorry, Alex thought, feeling a wave of guilt. I wish I didn't have to do this, but it's better this way. He reached the elevator and pressed the down button on the cracked panel. Far below him, ancient gears squealed away the silence. Alex winced and peeked over his shoulder, hoping that the sound didn't wake any of his neighbors. The stairs would have been a quieter option, but Alex wanted to reach his destination as quickly as possible, so he didn't have an opportunity to second-guess his decision. Ding! The elevator doors jerked open with a pained squeak, smudged mirror-paneled walls. Alex stepped inside and clicked the B button. The basement was his favorite place in the entire apartment building. It was spooky and weird and packed floor to ceiling with towers of knickknacks left behind by former tenants, like a graveyard of unwanted items. The most amazing part, however, was the broiler, an iron monster built nearly 60 years ago. Alex called it Old Smoky. It was his destination tonight. The elevator doors closed and the car began to descend in slow, jerky increments. Alex tapped his foot impatiently. Though his backpack was far lighter than usual, it seemed to weigh him down like an anchor. I'd feel better after they're gone, he thought. I'll just toss them in the flames and walk away. Don't even stick around to watch them burn. Of course, Alex could have just dumped the contents of his backpack down the trash chute and been done with it. But that seemed cruel. Cremating them in Old Smoky felt more honorable, like setting the body of a fallen soldier aflame. Alex figured he owed them a good death, at least. After all, he was the one who had created them. Alex tilted his head in confusion. Instead of the base? Alex figured he owed them a good death, at least. After all, he was the one that had created them. The elevator stopped. The doors creaked open. Alex tilted his head in confusion. Instead of the basement, an unfamiliar hallway stretched out before him. He checked the digital display at the top of the elevator. 4. Must be broken, he thought. Jabbing the B button with his index finger, the elevator didn't move. Alex sighed with frustration. Looks like I'm taking the stairs after all, he thought. He stepped off the elevator and headed towards the stairwell. The 4th floor had the same basic layout as the 8th, but it was noticeably darker. Alex glanced up at the light bulbs, wondering if a few of them had burnt out, but they seemed to be working fine. For some strange reason, however, their glow didn't radiate as far as it should, as though the darkness of this particular hallway was harder to penetrate than the ordinary kind. Just my crazy imagination, Alex thought, ignoring the cold sensation creeping down his spine. The bulbs are probably just old, or... He heard voices. They were coming from an apartment at the end of the hall. At first, Alex thought it was just people who had lived there. As he got closer, however, creepy music rose in the background, and Alex realized that the voices belonged to the characters from a movie. He broke into a big grin as he recognized the dialogue. That's Night of the Living Dead, he thought. Alex had been 4 years old the first time he had seen that movie. He was supposed to be asleep, but the strange sounds coming from the living room had piqued his curiosity, and he had crept out of bed to investigate. His mom and dad were cuddled up on the couch, sharing a bowl of popcorn. Alex hid behind his dad's easy chair and trained his eyes on the television. He'd never been more terrified or exhilarated in his life. By the time his parents realized they had an unwelcome visitor, it was too late. Alex was in love. At the end of the month, his Thomas trains had been exiled to the bin in the basement, replaced by toy monsters, plastic fangs, and a stuffed ghost named Boo. He dismantled his Lego fire trucks and rocket ships and used the bricks to build a haunted house. At the library, Alex insisted on borrowing only the picture books with little Halloween labels on their spine, despite the fact that it was June. Night of the Living Dead had been his introduction to the world of creepy things, and for that reason, it held a special place in his heart. Hearing it now, an overpowering desire to watch the movie again fogged all other thoughts. Alex approached the door of apartment 4E, the static-filled soundtrack reeling him in like a fish line, and pressed his ear against it. It was one of the early scenes of the movie, just before Barbara and her brother were attacked by a zombie at the graveyard. Wow, I've barely missed anything at all, Alex thought with excitement. He had, for the moment, completely forgotten about his backpack and his reason for coming out tonight. All he could think about was the movie. He was desperate to see it. If Alex had been thinking clearly, he might have realized that this didn't make any sense. After all, he could watch Night of the Living Dead anytime he wanted to on his iPad. Surely, that was a better choice than knocking on a stranger's door in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, Alex was not thinking clearly. His green eyes, usually so sharp and inquisitive behind their glasses, had gone uncharacteristically flat, and his mouth hung open with a baffled expression, giving him a striking resemblance to one of the zombies from the movie. Alex knocked on the door with 3 quick raps. A woman answered almost immediately, as though she had been expecting his arrival. "Well, look at this," she said, peering down at him. "A visitor!" The woman was in her late 20s with dark skin and short, spiky hair. She wore all black and a lot of makeup, especially around her eyes. "I'm sorry," Alex said. His mind was whirling. "What am I doing? I don't know why I knocked. I just heard..." What did you hear? She asked, leaning forward with an eager expression. Tell me. The movie? The woman smiled. There were tiny gapes between her narrow teeth, giving her the look of one of those weird glowing fish that prowl the deepest part of the ocean. A movie? She asked with genuine curiosity. That's new. Which one? Alex gave the woman a strange look. He could still hear the television blaring behind her, the zombie now banging on the window of Barbara's car as she was acting like she heard nothing at all. You don't know? Alex asked. Why should I? The movie's for you, not me. She opened the door wider. You want to watch it? She asked. I bet it's one of your favorites. A beam of fear cut through the fog of Alex's thoughts. It's the middle of the night and I'm having a conversation with a total stranger, like it's the most normal thing in the world, he thought. What is wrong with me? He took a step back, intending to leave as quickly as possible, when he smelled something wonderful coming from the apartment. Freshly baked pumpkin pie, his favorite. He breathed in the comforting smells of nutmeg and cinnamon, and all his fears instantly evaporated. This woman isn't a threat, he thought. She's just a nice lady who likes horror movies just like me. The Night of the Living Dead? Alex said. That's the movie, 1968, directed by George Romero. Ah, said the woman. How interesting. And I was right. It is one of your favorites. Top 10, right behind Let the Right One In and The Ring. Alex shrugged apologetically. I like scary stuff. You sound like my kind of kid, the woman replied. It's crazy. I was just about to kick back and watch the movie when I thought the only thing missing is someone to share this with, someone who really appreciates it. And here you are. She opened the door all the way, allowing Alex to see a view of a comfortable-looking couch and a coffee table piled high with oatmeal raisin cookies and pumpkin pie. Across from this cozy setup, a huge TV played the black and white images he had longed to see. Barbara struggling towards the farmhouse where she would be trapped for the rest of the movie with zombies in hot pursuit. Alex took a step forward towards the entrance. Well, don't just stand there gawking, silly boy, the woman said. Come inside. Even later, when Alex knew he had been under the influence of a powerful spell, he found it hard to believe that he had entered the apartment so easily. At the time, it was like his body was not his own, but a moth drawn to the flickering lights of a television. He crossed the threshold. The door clicked shut behind him. Gotcha, the woman said. She slipped a cold hand around his wrist, and all the energy seemed to leave his body. Alex sank into the cushions of a nearby couch, barely able to keep his eyes open. The woman eased into the chair across from him. The smile had faded from her lips. What's your name? Alexander? Alex? Which one? Alex, he said. He looked around the apartment in confusion. The television had vanished, along with the coffee table and the pumpkin pie. Where'd the TV go? Alex asked. It was never there. No, he insisted. I saw it. The apartment does what it can to get you inside. Different for everyone. A movie is an odd choice. Traditionally, there's some sort of food that draws them in. Kids are always thinking with their stomachs, you know? I did smell pumpkin pie. Well, there you go. It was becoming harder for Alex to focus. The room kept tilting back and forth, like when he first stepped off the pirate ride at an amusement park. He felt like he might be ill. I want to go home. Obviously, that's not going to happen, Alex. He turned in his seat, moving impossibly slow, hoping to make a mad dash for the door. except the door had vanished. The place where it had once stood was nothing but a blank wall. Where did the door go? He asked groggedly.
Away,
the woman said.
Don't worry, you won't be needing it anymore.
But that's not possible, Alex said. Doors don't just, they can't
Haven't you figured it out yet?
She asked him, grinning with pride.
I'm a witch, just like in a storybook.
She touched a single fingernail to his forehead.
And you, little mouse, have fallen right into my trap.
Alex tried to stand, but his legs had turned to jelly, and he collapsed to the floor instead. A wave of darkness crashed over him. So that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 is The Voice at the Door. Alex woke up in a lower half of a bunk bed. He had no idea where he was or how he had gotten there. He lay perfectly still, his body frozen with fear. Gradually, the events of the previous night returned to him. The elevator, the apartment, the witch. Except she's not really a witch, Alex thought, his mind racing. Witches aren't real. She's some crazy lady who thinks she's a witch. But then, why did I see a TV that wasn't really there? Did she hypnotize me or something? Alex clutched his blanket as a question of more immediate concern popped into his head. Who's sleeping on the top bunk? He stared at the iron bars holding the mattress in place above him, listening carefully for breathing sounds. When he didn't hear anything, Alex slid to the floor and gently placed his foot on the bottom rung of the ladder connecting the two bunks. In one swift movement, he popped his head over the upper railing. There was no one there, just an old mattress without any sheets or blankets. Alex let out a sigh of relief. I never knew a bunk bed could be so scary, he thought. The rest of the room was small and plainly furnished. There was a standing mirror in the corner and two doors. The first door Alex opened led to a closet, which was mostly empty except for some children's clothing hanging on a rod. Flipping through the shirts, pants, and dresses of various sizes, Alex remembered something that the woman had said the previous night. Traditionally, it's some sort of food that draws them in. Them, he thought, with a sickening feeling of dread. I'm not the first. Of course, he accepted what the woman had said at face value. That meant the apartment was capable of reading children's minds in order to lure them in with the appropriate bait. Like a smarter version of a candy cane house in Hansel and Gretel, Alex thought. In my case, a scary movie did the trick. He stared at the clothes before him. But what about those other kids? What brought them here? The smell of chocolate? A friend's voice? No, Alex said. It's impossible. There's no such thing as magic. He slammed the door shut with such ferocity that the empty hangers tingled together in response. Even if he rejected magic as a factor, it still left the disturbing possibility that he was one of a long line of children who had slept in this room. And if he followed that train of thought to its final stop, Alex found himself facing an even more disturbing question. If he wasn't the first kid that she had taken, what had happened to the rest of them? Before his overactive imagination could supply any morbid answers, Alex crossed the room to the second door, nearly tripping over his backpack in the process. The door was normal in every way except that it had two keyholes instead of one. The upper keyhole was the usual kind, but the second bore a strange crescent shape. Probably a special key, he thought, to keep everyone from escaping. Alex was so certain that he gasped when the knob turned in his hand. She must have forgotten to lock it, he thought, with a faint glimmer of hope. Sucking in his breath, Alex opened the door as slowly and as quietly as he could. The next room looked identical to the first. Simple bed, single closet, standing mirror in the corner. Alex stepped inside, weary of squeaking floorboards, and gently shut the door behind him. The moment he did, the door vanished and became a regular wall. What? Alex asked, backing away in shock until he tripped over something on the floor. His backpack. It can't be, he said, shaking his head. It's still in the other room. After checking the contents, however, there could no longer be any doubt. Either his bag had somehow teleported from one room to another, or something even stranger was happening. Trembling slightly, he opened the closet door. Children's clothes hung from the rod. They were identical in every way to the ones that he had been examining just a few minutes before. It's the same room, Alex said in astonishment. He opened the door with 2 keyholes and looked back and forth between the rooms, searching for the slightest difference. There wasn't any. He could see the door on the other side of the second room, and then an endless series of identical rooms beyond that, like reflections in a maze of mirrors. Curious what would happen, Alex lifted his backpack and watched it rise into the air like a prop in a haunted house. It's a magic prison, he thought. There's no way to escape. Alex shut the door and took a seat on the edge of the bed. The wheels of his brain spun madly around, trying to process the giant wrecking ball that had just tilted his world askew. Magic is real, he thought, his head in his hands. He stayed like this for a long time until he was struck by a second idea. Rising to his feet, Alex screamed as loud as he could while jumping up and down and pounding his fists against the wall, trying to make as much noise as possible. Help! Help! I've been captured by a crazy woman! Call the police! This place may be magic, but it's still inside a New York City apartment building, he thought. Not some house in the middle of the woods. Someone will hear me. Somebody will... The walls began to shake. A lifetime resident of the East Coast, Alex had never experienced an earthquake. What he was seeing and feeling right now, however, floor vibrating, walls shaking, was just as he had imagined an earthquake would be. Terror squeezed the air from his lungs. At any moment, Alex was certain that the floor would crack open and swallow him whole, or the ceiling would collapse, burying him beneath a mountain of rubble. Then it was over. What was that? Alex thought. He fell to his knees and waited for his equilibrium to return. That couldn't have been an earthquake, not in New York. But then what was it? Alex heard a scratching noise and saw the doorknob start to turn. He had just enough time to notice that a key had been inserted into the crescent keyhole, not the normal one. Then the witch entered the room.
Why were you screaming?
She said.
This apartment is enchanted. There could be an entire orchestra playing in the living room right now, and no one beyond these walls would hear a single note.
She was wearing a flowering black dress with black boots and black lipstick. Her long black nails came to 10 sharp points. Around her neck hung a beetle encased in amber. It was black. She sure looks like a witch, Alex thought. All she's missing is a broom and a pointy hat. A dozen keys dangled from a ring in her hand. Some were the typical kind. Others were white and didn't look like they were metallic at all. There was an earthquake or something, Alex said.
That was just the apartment settling itself. It happens from time to time.
Really? Alex said. This felt pretty... The woman vanished before his eyes.
Boo!
She whispered in his ear, now standing behind him. Alex screamed and stumbled backwards, nearly losing his balance.
What? That was amazing, wasn't it?
The woman said, looking pleased with herself.
You want to see it again?
Alex shook his head, unable to speak. She's a witch, he thought. A real, live, honest-to-goodness witch. Please let me go, he finally managed, the words a little more than a whisper. I won't tell anyone about this, really.
Alan, right?
She asked. Alex.
Not Alexander?
The woman said, remembering.
I'm Natcha. The thing is, I can't let you leave. Not now. Not ever.
Why not? Alex asked. And then, in a voice that sounded impossibly small, he added, Are you going to do something bad to me?
I'm a witch, she said. You're a child. We're not going to play checkers. Ever read any fairy tales?
Alex nodded.
Then you know how it is.
She sighed with exasperation.
I really don't have time for this today. I'm really late for an important meeting.
Nacho looked him over, her eyes lingering on his stomach. She smirked.
You don't look much like a worker. A few too many ice cream sundaes, perhaps? But then, what should I do with you?
You could let me go? Alex suggested.
Oh,
Nacho said.
You're funny. Unfortunately, that's not the same thing as being useful. Whatever. If things don't work out, I'll just add you to my collection.
She brushed her hands together in a cleaning up motion. Problem solved. What does that... Nacho checked her watch and let out a high-pitched scream.
Ah! Now you've made me later than before. You've only been here a few hours and you're already a problem. Not a good sign, Alan.
She slipped through the door and slammed it shut behind her. Alex heard the bolt click. Without any windows by which to judge the passing of time, the hours smudged together, making it difficult for Alex to determine how long he'd been trapped inside. 4 hours, he wondered? 8? There was no use trying to escape. He had been back and forth between the 2 rooms at least a dozen times. He didn't bother screaming anymore. Alex believed Nacho when she said that no one could hear him. After all, he'd seen her vanish right before his eyes and magically teleport across the room. Being able to soundproof her apartment didn't seem like it was that much of a stretch. Alex cried for a while. He tried not to, but he couldn't help it. He felt cold and scared and alone, and a little disappointed. All his life, he had loved scary stories, and now he was inside of one. Should have been fun. The problem was that the witches Alex had read about in books were story scary. This was real scary. There was a big difference. What is she going to do to me when she gets home tonight? Alex wondered. His imagination, as usual, leapt to the darkest conclusion. She might eat me, or boil me in a cauldron, or chop me up for ingredients in a spell. Gruesome images flashed through his mind, each worse than the last. Alex wanted to shut them off, but it wasn't as easy as turning a valve or flicking a switch. All he could do was wait it out. Finally, he heard footsteps. At first, Alex thought that Nacho had returned. His heart began to drum in his chest. This is it, he thought. Only, instead of unlocking the door, a mysterious visitor hesitated just outside of his room. A long shadow stretched beneath the crack of the door. Hello? Alex asked. Is someone there? He heard faint breathing behind the door. Please, he exclaimed. She's gonna be back soon. You have to help me. The silence stretched on and on. Alex was starting to wonder if his imagination was getting the best of him again when he heard a girl's soft voice. She likes stories. Floorboards squeaked as the shadow beneath the door retreated. In moments, Alex was alone once again. So chapter 3 will be for tomorrow, 3 and 4. Chapter 3 is called, let's see. Chapter 3 is The Thing Inside the Backpack, Lost Dog. And chapter 4 is A Room of Dark Wonders. So, okay, I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I wanted to provide a way for my students to be able to listen to our classroom read aloud that we had started before spring break and before our self-quarantine had started. I ordered the book because I left my copy in my classroom, and I spoke to the author also because I didn't want there to be any issues with the copyright. So this video is on my YouTube channel, which is The Obnoxious Teacher, but this video itself is private. So there's a link that I will send you. So hopefully you got there either through Dojo or Facebook, or I texted you or emailed you so you'd be able to see it. I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to listen to this. I'm recording in my craft room at my house. It is probably the quietest place, but that is what all the stuff in the background is. I'm trying to not get too personal. Hi everyone, my name is Sarah, the obnoxious teacher. I wanted to continue a way for my students and any of their family members to be able to listen to our classroom read aloud that we had started before spring break, and only got a few chapters in, and I've read ahead, but I know that the students haven't, and some of the students really enjoyed the story, so I wanted to give them the opportunity to listen to this. I did speak to the author about I didn't want there to be any issues with copyright, so this is a private video posting.